Welcome back to Let's Get Cooking. I'm Rashida. Hope you had an amazing holiday. Today I wanted to bring you in the kitchen to show you how to make a broccoli cheddar soup. This one might give Panera a run for its money. A few simple ingredients to get this soup started. I'm going to use some chicken broth or stock, half and half, some broccoli, carrots, onion, butter, flour, salt and pepper, a little garlic powder, and of course some shredded cheddar cheese. Very simple, very quick, and oh so good. Let's get started. To start off, I'm going to melt my butter, 4 tablespoons of butter in my Dutch oven. Any pot will work just as fine, but I'm using Dutch oven for this recipe. Melting the butter, once it's melted, almost melted, I'm going to add in my onions, and I'm going to saute those for about 3 minutes. Once I've sauteed those onions for about 3 minutes in the butter, I'm going to add in 2 minced garlic cloves. And then I'll saute those all together for about another minute. I like to use freshly grated garlic cloves, but if you have just the chopped garlic in a jar in the refrigerator, that'll work just fine. Just as fine. And I'm using 2 garlic cloves, but if you really are not a fan of garlic, you can omit the garlic or just reduce it to 1. But I like the flavor that it adds to the soup. Next up is that 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons of flour, and I'm adding that to the butter, the onions, and the garlic, and this is making a roux. We've talked about a roux is the basis of many soups, gumbo, some macaroni and cheese. It's the basis to any like creamy sauce soup to help thicken it. So I'm making a roux, combining the butter and flour, and it's always even parts, butter and flour. So it's 4 tablespoons of butter, 4 tablespoons of flour. In that I have sauteed the onions and the garlic. I have let that cook for about 5 minutes, and now I'm getting ready to add in my liquids, starting off with the chicken broth. You always want to start with the chicken broth. And I'm going to mix that in. It's good to have a whisk on hand so there won't be any lumps. And I'm going to whisk that for about a minute or 2. Smoothing out all lumps, and then letting that begin to cook. I'm cooking this on a medium-high heat. Now that the broth has been added, I'm adding in some salt and pepper, starting that extra little layer of seasoning and flavor. Salt just enhances the flavor of a dish. Now it's time to add the 2 cups of half and half in and let that begin to cook. Of course, continuing to stir. combining the broth and the half and half. This is the basis of the soup. It's a cream-based soup. It's a creamy soup, which is why I'm adding half and half. You can also use heavy cream. It'll make it a lot richer, or milk if you don't have any cream or half and half. Giving this a good stir. So with the roux being the beginning stages of the soup, with the broth and the half and half, it's going to start to thicken. The soup is going to start to thicken, but now it's time for me to add in my veggies, and starting with the carrots. And I just cut those and dice. I use small carrots. I use baby carrots. And just cut those into bite-sized pieces. But if you have larger carrots, you just want to chop those into finer pieces. And I'm adding in my 4 cups of broccoli. And I did go ahead and chop those down a little bit. For this recipe, I did use fresh broccoli. I prefer fresh broccoli over frozen. But if you don't have fresh broccoli and you have frozen, the frozen bag of florets will do. I think it's like a 12 ounce or 16 ounce bag. You want the broccoli florets preferably, so that you don't have a bunch of stalks. But I just took about 1 head, about a pound of garlic, not garlic, a pound of broccoli, and chopped it up, fresh broccoli, and used it in the soup. Then I'm adding in a little bit more salt, a little bit more pepper, and I'm going to let this cook for about 15 minutes. Also a little bit of garlic powder, and that's just my choice. And I'm going to let this cook for about 10 to 15 minutes until the broccoli and the carrots are fork tender. I don't want them to be too soft, too mushy. I want them just fork tender. And I'm still on that medium high heat, keeping an eye on it and stirring it every few minutes. While my soup is cooking, I'm going to pose the question of the day, and that is, what is your favorite soup? What's your favorite soup to eat? What warms your soul? They say soup is good for the soul. I believe that's a phrase. Soup is good for the soul. So what's your favorite soup? Do you like broth-based soups or cream-based soups? Do you prefer one over the other? I like a variety of soups, to be honest. I like chicken noodle soup, a good homemade chicken noodle soup. I like corn chowder. And I like this broccoli and cheddar, of course. And there's some others I like. I mostly like soup, though, in the fall and winter. Spring and summer, I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of soup. So, what's your favorite soup? Make sure you comment below and let me know. All right, it's been about 10 or 15 minutes, so I'm just checking the vegetables and checking them for that fork tender, not mushy. I'm very big on that. You don't want it to get mushy, because I guess that'll work, but I just prefer that tender bite. Now at this point, once the soup is ready, I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to use my immersion blender, my hand blender, and I'm going to blend most of the soup. And that's just going to make everything smoother and finer, but leaving a few chunks in with it. If you don't have an immersion hand blender, you can turn the soup off and put some of it in a blender and mix it there, and then return it back to the pot. This is a hand immersion blender that I have, and it comes in handy every once in a while. So I'm basically just blending the carrots, the onions, the broccoli right there in the Dutch oven. And that's what turns into that broccoli cheddar soup that you may have seen in some of the major restaurants. At this point, I'm not going to blend it any further. I do want a couple small chunks and bits and pieces of the broccoli and carrot to remain in true form. And now I'm about to add that major ingredient, the shredded cheese. I'm using 2 cups of shredded cheese for this soup. You can definitely reduce the cheese if you don't want as much, or you can omit the cheese if you are not a fan of cheese and just have that broccoli soup, and that'll be good all by itself. But I'm taking it up a notch since this is broccoli and cheddar, adding 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. I chose to shred the cheese myself instead of using the pre-packaged shredded cheese because it comes out a lot smoother. At the point of adding in the cheese, you want to have your soup should be turned down to just about a good simmer. It doesn't take a whole lot to melt the cheese because it's already very hot. We're nearing the end of the soup. The cheese is the last major ingredient. I'm going to cook that for just about 2 or 3 more minutes till everything is just nice, combined, nice and smooth to the palate. Adding a pinch of nutmeg and paprika, just a little bit. And those just complement the flavors of the soup. They are not required, but they just add a nice little touch. And there it is. The broccoli cheddar soup is complete. It is good. It does not take a long time at all. And it's definitely a standalone meal or dish, but you can definitely do a soup and a sandwich. If you have some nice fresh croutons, you definitely can add those to it. A side of bread, a side of a nice French loaf would go well, or definitely soup and salad. If you have some salad and just want some soup, make it at home. Soup and salad. I believe making stuff at home is the best. So make a salad, make some soup, and there you have it. Broccoli cheddar soup for the win. It's an awesome dish. It tastes very good, very flavorful. Thanks for coming in the kitchen. Thanks for cooking with me as always. I appreciate it. Please remember to subscribe, share, and like. Until the next video, have a blessed day and a blessed week, and I should see you in the new year. So happy New Year's to you in advance. Take care.